Well, the battle between the CBI chief and his number 2, Rakesh Asthana, reached the Delhi High Court today, with the special director and his arrested team member Devinder Kumar challenging the FIR filed by the agency against them in a bribery case. The High Court has ordered status quo till the next hearing on Monday, which means that Mr. Asthana cannot be arrested till then. It has another court, however, has sent Mr. Kumar, Devinder Kumar, Mr. Asthana's aide, to police custody for the next 7 days. But it also turns out, interestingly, that the case against Mr. Asthana has been filed on a clause of the anti-corruption law that lapsed in July. The CBI has said now it's up to the court to decide what happens next. Mr. Asthana's boss, Alok Verma, meanwhile, has written to the government seeking clearance for his suspension. This is, of course, an unprecedented war within the country's top investigation agency. Special Director Asthana is known to be close to the Prime Minister. He held top posts in Gujarat when Mr. Modi was the Chief Minister at that time. And the government has made no secret of the fact that it is not happy with the CBI Director, especially after he met political leaders like Arun Shourie and Yashwant Sinha, who had come to him with a complaint on the Rafale jet deal only some weeks earlier. Well, joining us on NDTV this evening now is former Union Minister Arun Shourie. Mr. Shourie, thank you for speaking to us today. What is your take on this unprecedented CBI versus CBI battle that we are seeing?
Actually, Nidhi, contrary to what you said, I feel it is a very good thing. And every viewer and every reader should follow every twist and turn of this battle. Because you see, whenever anything happens, Kathua rape takes place, some riot takes place, people say the murder takes place. Oh, this must be inquired into by the CBI. Well, here we are getting a glimpse of what the real condition is of the CBI and what a clique of officers led by Asthana are doing about very important cases. So they were dealing with businessmen, they were dealing with corruption, and maybe that's how other things get done also. So that's the first point. The second point is to remember what is the root cause of all this. Precisely what you said. It is the determination of the Prime Minister and his clique to force an officer of their choice into the CBI. And it was not just an ordinary thing. I think many of us would not remember that they delayed the appointment of a regular director and brought in Asthana and made him the acting director. And they would have continued him till he then automatically became the director. And this, in spite of the fact that they knew that he was under investigation for all sorts of things that he had done by the CBI itself. But the even more, distressing fact is that all these facts were brought to the notice of the Supreme Court by my friend Prashant Bhushan. They were brought to the attention of the CVC, and these people resolutely shut their eyes to the facts. And this is the result.
But
so
Mr.
I
Shourie,
certainly feel that it is very good.
Sorry,
yes.
Please complete your thought. Yes, go ahead. It's very. Oh, you feel it's very good that this has all come out into the open.
It is very good that these into the open, and that these visible symbols of things that are wrong, these Asthana and all, should be kept there, slowly twisting in the wind, as Haldeman said about others, so that people get to know what the condition of the CBI is.
But Mr. Shourie, ever since this controversy,
CBI, which was being
ever since this controversy has festered,
CBI,
which has been for some months now, and particularly in the last few days, there are some, including retired bureaucrats, people who have served in the CBI as well, who actually believe that both officers should have to step aside in order for there to be a fair inquiry into what's going on, because Rakesh Asthana has his own counter complaint against the CBI director. Now, it's not that easy to remove the sitting CBI director. It is, however, possible for the government to move Mr. Asthana out. What do you feel about that? Do you believe both men need to be moved out? And who will investigate them?
No, on the contrary, I don't believe in being what you call neutral between the arsonist and the firefighter, as many people suddenly become. Here is a person who is brought in forcibly into the CBI, just as you implied earlier, this is happening in other investigative agencies. You just see the number of persons now maybe in their 50s or 60% who have resigned in their statements in the Sohrabuddin murder case. That maybe 50 odd people have died crucial people have died in mysterious circumstances in the Vyapam case. So, and what is the National Investigative Agency done in the Mecca mosque blast case? So it is a pattern. It's not just Asthana. Asthana was just one of the instances. So we must focus on this pattern, and to say, oh, both officers should go as if it is a personal fight between two officers. In fact, I would say, Nidhi, the contrary. That I would, I don't want to put Mr. Verma into more trouble by complimenting him, and thereby, people say, oh, see, he's the favorite of other people. I would compliment his staff, which is investigating persons like Asthana when they know full well that he has the backing of what is called in India the highest in the land. So it's very good. They must be investigated, and they investigated to the end.
Well, you talked about this yourself. The point is that these questions about Mr. Asthana's record were there even when he was appointed as special director, and the CVC chose to ignore that. But I just wanted your take, Mr. Shourie, on the Prime Minister's personal intervention in this. Now, there's some debate about that as well. Many argue that, this is an important agency that, reports to his government. It's good that, he had summoned the officers and met the CBI director, etc. The Congress, however, argues that it was inappropriate. There are, serious charges against Mr. Asthana. The PM shouldn't be intervening. If he doesn't do it, we'll say he's, throwing up his hands and not doing anything. But now that he's done it, is it fair to criticize him for trying to resolve this?
No. Actually, in my view, Nidhi, what is happening in the CBI is yet another illustration of the Prime Minister having lost control of administration and of the government. But in this regard, there are two different points. We must first know what exactly he talked to these two officers. If he talked to Verma about the investigation into Asthana's case or the investigation into Rafale or anything, then he is certainly interfering in the course of investigation and therefore the courts of justice, and that is a crime. I'm sure he would be careful enough not to do that. On the other hand, it is an agency of the government, and therefore when things are at loggerheads like this, it is certainly within his purview to ask, kaise theek ho sakta hai?
Right.
To find a remedial course.
But Mr.
But
Shourie,
that's a separate matter. But if he has talked to either of them, about an investigation, then he is interfering in the course of justice.
Let's talk about now how you get involved in this. And you get involved in this because you and Mr. Yashwant Sinha and Prashant Bhushan had gone to meet the CBI director with your complaint on the Rafale jet deal. And it is no secret that the government has been very unhappy about that. Reporters were told, it was widely reported in the media, that they felt that the CBI director was out of line. He should have accepted the complaint at the CBI reception and not met you all personally. What is your sort of take on how that controversy has played out? Yes.
Nidhi, firstly, Mr. Yashwant Sinha was not in town, so he did not go that day. Second is, that this is not the first time I have been to the director's office. I went to the director's office on two previous, in one case to his office, in one case to the house of a director, after seeking official appointments, as we did in this particular case, because at that time I had useful information about an investigation, on two separate investigations that they were doing. And they were kind enough to thank me for bringing that information to their attention. That is our duty as citizens. Now, in the present case, we have worked very hard. Prashant and his team have worked extremely hard, and we have contributed a little bit on the Rafale deal. And we have gone to give it to them. Okay, the director was kind enough to receive it. He listened to us patiently. He made some notes on a piece of paper. But people seem to forget that we also called upon the CVC, the Chief Vigilance Commissioner, Mr. Chaudhary, and he was equally courteous, he was equally patient, he listened to us at great length, and I don't want to, put him into any trouble, but actually there was one point which was troubling us, and he showed us the way out. So it's not the director they should be upset about.
Well, can you share?
And it was
can you share what advice the CVC gave you? No, not at all. Not at all. That's not necessary. It will come out in the next few days. It's a point of law. It was just that you were alluding to, on which these government fellows, fools, are taking shelter. They haven't read the law properly. Have you been told what?
And you see, actually, far from the.
Sorry, have you been told what the CBI has done about your complaint? Have you been told what the CBI has done about your complaint?
No, actually, that's a very important point. You say that the director was, favored us by meeting us. We have a grievance against him and the CBI. You see, there is a case called Lalita Kumari versus the government of Uttar Pradesh, decided by a constitution bench of 5 judges in 2014. When a complaint is brought to the CBI and it deals with an offence, then it is mandatory under that judgment for the CBI to register an FIR. At the most, they can have an inquiry, not in the substance of whether that offence was committed or not, but whether the complaint relates to the commitment of an offence. And that they have to complete within 1 week and then register the FIR. Now, we filed this complaint with the director on the 4th of October. Today is the 24th. 3 weeks have gone by and the FIR has not been filed. That is our grounds against them. I'll tell you. You see, supposing Nidhi Razdan goes to the CBI and says, I saw Arun Shourie walking on the road. So, register an FIR. Now, walking on the road is not an offence. But supposing Nidhi Razdan went to the CBI and said, I saw Arun Shourie walking into a prohibited defence area where nobody is allowed to go. That is an offence. They have to register a FIR. And they are not to determine whether I was actually walking there or not. All they can do is whether Nidhi Razdan's complaint relates to my having committed an offence. Now, there can be no doubt that the voluminous complaint that we have filed with 40 odd annexures deals with the commitment of a series of offences under the Prevention of Corruption Act and other criminal acts dealing with crimes. So, no inquiry is required. No permission is required. So, why have you delayed it by 3 weeks?
So you're saying the CBI...
So that is our grouse.
Your grouse is that the CBI has not acted on your complaint, Mr. Shourie. There is, however, and I'm saying this very carefully, I'm saying this very, very carefully.
As far as we know.
A lot of political gossip or speculation right now that the CBI director has just a couple of months left before he retires. The government can't really remove him. It's a complicated process. It wouldn't look nice to do that either. He's pretty unhappy with the way things have unfolded, and he has your complaint. So if he wants, he can order at least a preliminary inquiry. That's not out of the realm of possibility, is it?
No, I don't know what, we have not calculated on when he is retiring or what the next director will be and this, that and the other. As you know, we have been going into this issue and we have been excavating the facts for some months now. And we have held 3 press conferences, and now we took the next logical step of going to the CBI because now we had very important material. We placed it. The Wire has published that the entire text of our complaint. You can see that. It is a very well documented complaint. It's not just a frivolous thing.
But do you think that that's part of the reason? Do you think that's part of the reason the government is not happy with the CBI director, that you went to meet him with this complaint and that he met you?
No, but what should we do? They should be unhappy with us, but to the director.
Well, they're always unhappy with you.
Us, no, leave it at the reception.
It kind of fell out on the director. No?
No, but you see, the problem, Nidhi, is this is a non-issue whether somebody receives you, I am nobody. But let us say Mr. Yashwant Sinha, who just by accident could not be in Delhi that day because he had engagements out of town, he had been along with Prashant and me. Now, he is a very senior man, much more senior to these prime ministers and all these characters here. He has sat in on decisions of war and peace. Do you know that he is a person who is the only person whom Mr. Bajpayee had told about the forthcoming atomic tests? Because he was the finance minister and he had to prepare a plan of how to meet the sanctions which would be imposed from the next day. He is that kind of a person, and if the CBI director is courteous enough to receive him, would that be, oh, such an impropriety?
All right.
It's very silly. And to dub, so often you people say, I'm not a politician, then you say, Prashant Bhushan is a senior advocate, and you say, he's also a politician. Well, this is just, trying to manufacture issues and not dealing with the facts. The fact of the matter is that we filed a complaint which is a detailed complaint, and the CBI under that Lalita Kumari versus UP is
You're saying they're mandated
in duty bound
to file
to register an FIR. It has not registered it thus far.
All right, Mr. Shourie, thank you very much for joining us.
Only after it registers an FIR, this is one point, it is only after it registers an FIR, Nidhi, that it acquires the powers for search, seizure, investigation and so on.
Well, it is worth following up with the CBI on what they've done based on what you've just said. Thank you, Mr. Shourie, for joining us on NDTV this evening. Mr. Arun Shourie, they're saying that these are silly controversies about the fact that he and Prashant Bhushan had met the CBI director, which also did make the government extremely unhappy. But here with us this evening to talk about how this story is unfolding, and it continues to be the big story today, is Mr. Ajay Dua, who was a former secretary in the government of India, Sanjay Hegde, senior advocate of the Supreme Court, Pawan Khera of the Congress, and Raghav Avasthi, who's a lawyer and member of the RSS, also with us. Quick word, Mr. Dua, you were listening to Arun Shourie there. I'm curious about your take on this. It's unprecedented. It's terrible to see the CBI number 1 and 2 in this fight. But do you think that this is, the agency is now in an internal turf war, which is very highly politicized?
Yes, it does look like politics has crept into it. Probably politics got into it with the very appointment of the number 2. Because at that very point of time, the CBI director seems to have given a representation to the CVC that this person has a number of cases against him and he should not be appointed. But the government went ahead and he was appointed on the recommendations of the CVC. The fact of the matter is, where we have reached today is a highly undesirable state of affairs, undesirable from the point of view of criminal administration in the country, from the point of view of institutions which did enjoy a degree of respect. So we are reaching a stage where, God forbid, what happens hereafter, whether it's with this particular institution or the fallout of it, we see elsewhere as well.
Sanjay Hegde, I'll take off from what Mr. Dua just said, about the CVC in particular. This has raised a question mark not just on the CBI's functioning and its institutional credibility, but frankly on the CVC's credibility as well. I mean, in all of this, where is the office of the CVC? What is the CVC doing about these complaints? Who is sort of monitoring what is going on in the CBI? It shouldn't have to actually be the Prime Minister.
No, technically the CBI reports to the Home Ministry, but of course everything is under the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister having to intervene to cool off things, I don't think is entirely bad. And I am sure that the Prime Minister is a wise man, wise enough not to get into any particulars about either investigation. Today we have a situation where the CBI head is there for a couple of months, and he has, in no uncertain terms, launched an investigation into charges that do not seem meritless. It is not as if Mr. Asthana's links were not known earlier. Despite those links, he was approved by the CVC, and you are right that there is a question mark about the CVC process. Where the government has entirely failed was to insist on Mr. Asthana continuing in the CBI when it became clear that he could not be the CBI director. What has also become absolutely clear is that there is no possibility now of Mr. Asthana ever becoming CBI director, because I doubt that a selection committee of the Prime Minister, the Chief Justice of India and the leader of the opposition will approve such an appointment. Having said that, the government should also remember that the government is temporary. It's a caretaker of the entire institution. You may have fresh governments, but the CBI has to go on. You cannot have a situation where the CBI is irrevocably damaged, and it will be damaged particularly so if somebody who's holding on to the number 2 position out there is arrested, or there is enough material to proceed against him.
I'm glad you still hold out hope that the irrevocable damage hasn't happened yet. You're saying that it could still happen, and I want to ask Raghav Avasthi about that. Are you still not convinced that the damage actually has been quite lasting on the CBI?
The damage took place in 2013 when the CBI was described as a cage palace. As far as this situation is concerned, as on date, I do believe, and I was reading tweets by Ms. Shalini Singh in the morning, and I have enough reason to believe that all of this is this huge conspiracy hatched by career nationalists like Arun Shourie and this entire Latins cabal to discredit the institution, because the Congress party believes in adopting a scorched earth policy.
Can you tell us?
That's the Congress party, and it's assorted. Yes. So they are still powerful. They are still powerful enough to run smear campaigns and things like this against.
It's happening in the
definitely
CBI
a smear campaign.
It is
a smear campaign. Mr. Asthana is an officer who has investigated many important cases, and the Congress party perhaps has an interest in some of those cases, and that is why they are discrediting him. That's why they are discrediting him. Now the facts will definitely come out.
So you're saying that the CBI director is leading a smear campaign? Is that what you're saying? Is the CBI director part of the Congress?
Let me complete.
No, since you said that there's a smear campaign.
Please allow me to complete. There is a litany of complaints against the CBI director also. Let both complaints be investigated, and the truth shall come out. There are enough complaints that have been made by Mr. Asthana. Let all the complaints be investigated.
Mr. Asthana against the CBI director. What
let
else is there?
Everything be investigated. So there is a litany of charges. So let everything be investigated.
What is the litany
as of now, as Mr. Shourie pointed out in his exposition of Lalita Kumari.
I have a simple question. You said that this is the Congress Latins cabal smear campaign against Mr. Asthana. So is the CBI director?
I was quoting someone else. I was quoting someone else.
So you said you agreed with that. So is the CBI director part of that same cabal?
There is enough reason to believe.
I am saying that there is enough reason to believe. Are you saying the CBI director is part of the same cabal?
All that I am saying is that there are many enlightened people who have covered these beats who hold this opinion. That's all. That's all I am saying.
And I have no reason to disbelieve them. So it is actually interesting, because then the RSS representative, which is you, is taking a very clear position in this. You're taking a side. You're on Mr. Asthana's side.
No, I'm not. I am just quoting what I have read, which
by
a senior journalist who investigated a lot of scams that took place when the UPA was in power. That's all I'm saying.
Well, Pawan Khera, the Congress today held a press conference on this, talking about the damage to institutions, etc. One can of course argue that the damage to the CBI was probably done long before the NDA came to power. But the question now is, as we try to look ahead, what is the way out? I mean, if we have to investigate the complaint that even Asthana has made against his boss, if we have to go and look at a fair investigation into the FIR against Mr. Asthana, who's going to do that? What is the institution left to do that?
Nidhi, this particular Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, has this habit of saying 70 साल में पहली बार हुआ. For the first time we agree with him. जी हाँ, 70 साल में ये तो पहली बार हुआ है, बाकी कुछ हुआ या ना हुआ. Supreme Court, let's start from there. Number 1 and number 2, 3, 4, 5 fighting. coming out openly in the public. Start from Rohini Salyan, if you remember, who was investigating the blast, the Malegaon blast. The NIA superintendent of police tells her, she was the special prosecutor, to go soft on the accused moment this government came to power. It doesn't stop there. Every single institution, look at the RBI. They've reduced the RBI into, I don't even want to name words the way they used to call it caged parrots. They are lapdogs now. Look at the Supreme Court, the RBI, the Election Commission of India, the Enforcement Directorate, the Income Tax, every single institution. And look at the CBI. Now this is a hand-picked officer, mind you. He didn't deserve to be where he is. Picked up by the Prime Minister. And now the Prime Minister has to summon him, summon the raw guys, summon the head of CBI. What on earth were the instructions given to them? We want to know. Why is this Prime Minister? We can understand they have no idea of what governance is. We absolutely understand. Don't, for God's sake, undermine these critical institutions. It's very easy to say, 60 साल में आपने किया था. अरे 60 साल, 70 साल में ये कभी नहीं हुआ था. Differences are always there. Political masters always try and tame the bureaucracy. It's not that they are the only ones doing, but the shamelessness with which these people are doing, it's like a Hindi movie. My problem is that Mr. Modi and Mr. Shah derive a lot of their inspiration from cheap Hindi movies where they see a politician taming everybody and using the government as a playground. For God's sake, don't reduce governance to be a playground here. It's not a Hindi movie, and it's definitely not a cheap Hindi movie, the way you would like to reduce it to be.
All right, I want to ask Mr. Dua, though, that I come back to the question of how do we resolve this? I mean, how do you this is the premier investigating agency, and as Arun Shourie also said, whenever something happens, we say, order a CBI probe. It's had its credibility questions, but this is unbelievable. So therefore, what's the way out?
I think the CVC has been charged with the responsibility of monitoring what happens in CBI. It could have taken notice, cognizance of what was happening a couple of months ago itself, because this has been simmering for some time. Unfortunately, it didn't. Now that it's come to an head, apart from what's happening in the courts of law, the matter has already gone to the High Court today. CVC still has a role to play. I think it can intervene. Because
what can it do?
CVC can look at what is happening within the agency, either on its own or by constituting a team of eminent people to go into, it's like an SIT, what a court would have ordered. The CVC has the authority to do that. And I would think that apart from the fact that today there is a fight between number 1 and number 2, has it gone down deep into the system? Has there been polarization or groupism in there?
You can see that. One of Mr. Asthana's close aides and an officer is under arrest.
So this is exactly what I'm fearing, that the CVC has a role and a responsibility, a duty to go into this matter. Under the Lokpal Act, they have been charged with this responsibility, and I would urge it to do that at the earliest.
Sanjay Hegde, a quick last question to you then, which is the same. Is it the CVC? Can it be left to the CVC to intervene in this, or will it have to be the Supreme Court? How is this going to get resolved?
See, the matter may or may not reach the Supreme Court. The CVC can also give suggestions or directives to the government. But the CVC's role with regard to the CBI and with regard to postings is more at the inception stage before a man goes in. Once he goes in, it is after all the Home Ministry which is in charge, which has to take a call, and the call should be very simple. It would have to be that Mr. Asthana would have to be persuaded either to go on leave or stay out of the agency. The investigations against him should go on. Mr. Asthana's charges against the CBI director, there must be some way of ensuring that he is satisfied that an independent inquiry is conducted where the director has no say. As far where that inquiry goes, that we may not know, and in any event the director is scheduled to retire after 2 months. Today, the first task is to save the agency. Some people will move out in the course of time, but you have to ensure that people who are suspect are no longer associated with the agency in any manner where they can influence any other investigations. The integrity of investigations conducted by the agency and the integrity of the CBI both need to be restored as fast as possible.
Well, like I said, I'm glad you still hold out hope on that. One quick last question, Pawan Khera. Political circles abuzz with, what could happen in the next few weeks with, a Rafale complaint lying with the CBI director. Anything you care to share?
No, I hope Rafale is investigated. We've been demanding JPC, but this government doesn't believe in institutions. This government does not believe in parliamentary norms. When they demanded JPC, we gave them the JPC because we thought the truth should come out. So they should at least respect this demand for JPC. If they do not accede to this demand, of course, everybody is free to go to any other agency. There should be a court-monitored investigation now in a lot of deals which this government has done. It's the way they are undermining institutions. People's faith in these critical institutions is getting severely eroded, and that's something which is a very dangerous trend for the people of India. They should have faith in at least some agency.
All right. Well, thank you to all of you for joining us. This continues to be the big story that we are tracking. I don't think we've quite seen the last act of this drama play out just yet. Thank you very much to all of you for joining us.